All right, we have a lot to cover in this video. This is the Lenovo Legion Go S with the Z1 Extreme processor, 32 gigs of RAM running SteamOS. It's $830, which is a pretty penny. It's a lot of money. It's almost perfect. The only thing I wish it had were a bigger battery and a less reflective display. Very, very reflecty. Other than that, this has been phenomenal to use. And I barely had it. I've only had it a few days. Lenovo sent it for review. I do have to send it back. But in that time, I've just fallen in love with it. I love the balance here with everything. The ergonomics, the display, it's just such a treat to use. Now, the ROG Ally X has been my daily, but the screen's just too small. And I mostly play side scrollers and platformers. So for me, like, man, it's hard to play those games. It's becoming harder, actually, as I get older. It's hard to play those games on a small screen. But I love the battery with the 80 watt hours. Then there's a Legion Go, original, the Big Daddy. And this is an awesome handheld too. I put SteamOS on it, which has made a huge difference for me in terms of just like overall usability and comfort, but it's not the most comfortable handheld to use. It's been covered a lot, but I put these plastic grips on it to help. It's heavy, it's large. The angles, they're not smooth, kind of wears on your hand. I do like taking the controllers off and using the built-in kickstand. That's really awesome, but it's a lot of handheld. And I think we're going to see that kind of separate in the Legion Go line. And we're going to have just two separate handhelds, the Legion Go S and the Legion Go. And there'll be a Go 2 and an S2, maybe. I don't know what to call it, but it will happen. That's my belief. Then there's the original Steam Deck with the OLED display. Phenomenal, great balance of everything. Awesome light diffusion with the matte finish that's optional, but I love that. And I wouldn't trade this for anything. For playing those platformers, this is very good, but that resolution is just so low, right? 800p, that once you use 1080p or 1200p, it's hard to go back, at least it is for me. But still, it's the one handheld I'd recommend to most people. It's just got the best overall ergonomics, great price at just $550. And if you just want to pick up your Steam library and go, you're done. It's the easiest way to do it. That's kind of changed now with the partnership between Valve and Lenovo with the Legion Go S, because this is the same thing. It feels just like a Steam Deck in terms of the interface and usability. You sign in, you unbox it, you power it on, and you're signing yourself into Steam, and it works with the Steam Guard app and all that fun stuff. It's really great. But it is not perfect, and we need to get to that. But it kind of depends on your point of view. So let's just do some quick ergonomic overview and all that fun stuff. All right. So first of all, we have our ventilation at the top. The fans do spin up quite a bit when you put it into performance mode, but otherwise, it's really not that annoying. You've got your triggers on the back. They're shallow for my taste, even if you were to adjust it. So you have these toggles on the back to make it more of a hair trigger. Even without those all the way up, I still feel like these are a bit shallow, but it's personal preference at that point. You got your keys in the back that you can program. Really cool honeycomb design on the back with the Legion branding and the Lenovo branding at the bottom. I think this looks very, very good. On the bottom, not much to see here, just our micro SD card slot, some screws. If you do want to get in here and replace the drive, it's a bit involved. You have to remove the buttons. It's not impossible, believe me, but it's not as easy as on the ROG Ally. And I will eventually change the SSD if I buy one, because this one I have to send back. Okay, on the front, we have Steam branded icons here. They're very hard to see. Apologies if that's not coming through, but this lets you know this is a Steam device. You've got your triggers with lights on the, sticks with lights around it. D-pad, the D-pad's good. No complaints about it. And overall buttons are good too. If you'd like a sound comparison, here it is against the original Legion Go. Let's do it this way. A little more hollow on the Legion Go S. Here's our ROG Ally. Very clicky on the Ally. And Vita, just me having fun. Okay, and then Steam Deck. Even quieter and more hollow on the Steam Deck. Okay, so back to this guy. Speakers are front facing. There is a trackpad that is really not usable, at least for my taste. And there you have it. You have a really good, ergonomically friendly design that resembles a Legion Go and also resembles a Steam Deck. It's this little hybrid. Okay, so I'm gonna show you gameplay of Ghost of Tsushima, but I also wanna show you gameplay of some easier games to play, like Super Roboid, because for me, that's really where it's at. I like to play these kind of Metroidvania 2D side scrollers on my handhelds. I think that, trying to drive AAA games on handhelds, super doable. There's a lot of fun tools to do it, like integer scaling, FSR, frame generation, all of that stuff, which is great. And I use it on here for Ghost of Tsushima, but I prefer to just, this is my style right here. I know that probably sounds ridiculous, but if I'm gonna play a really hard game, like a demanding game, I'm gonna do it on my desktop because it just looks better. So here's Super Roboid. It's an easy 120 hertz. Like there's just nothing else to it. It's 120 hertz. I got VSync enabled. It's running great. Not a hitch anywhere. And what I can do further is I can change the performance profile from balanced to low power. And let's see how it performs now. Okay, there's a dip. I can feel it. 100 frames per second, about 9,200 frames per second. So you take a dip, but it's still ultra playable. And here's where you get the best battery life. Let's take a look at Ghost of Tsushima. Okay, it's time for a head-to-head comparison between the Ally X and the Legion Go S. So not only is the screen bigger on the Legion Go S, it's also a higher resolution. It's 1200p versus the 1080p on the Ally X. And that small amount of pixels actually makes a big difference because these handhelds, they're tiny computers. They're big handhelds, tiny computers, and so that's going to matter. How these things are cooled, how fast the RAM is running, that all matters too. There's 32 gigs of RAM in the Legion Go S and 24 in the Ally X. Now both are set to 8 gigabytes of VRAM, just so you know. So heads up comparison. Now here we're in the same part of the game, as you'll see here in a moment. There we go. Same section in the game, same exact settings. We have FSR3, frame generation, dynamic resolution scaling with a target frame rate of 60 frames per second. And the Ally X is getting, I know it's really hard to read, about 80 frames per second, just right here on the hill as I spin around the camera. 79 to 87 frames per second. Here on the Legion Go S, we're at about 95 frames per second. I think up to 100. I think the reason that it's a little bit better here on the Legion Go S is because it's running SteamOS and not Windows. Where I'm seeing a bunch of examples online right now of people who have handhelds that are doing better with SteamOS than Windows because of resource management. It's not going to be across the board the same every time, but it does make a difference, at least here. So I'm going to make some adjustments now. We're going to turn the upscaling off and the frame gen off. Okay, so now we have more of like a pure horsepower comparison. Let's start with the Ally X. 55, 56 frames per second. Yep, and then here at the Legion Go S, closer to 60. And that's pretty great. Now, the performance mode, let me go back to that real quick. This performance mode, I'm pretty certain it oscillates between 25 and 30 watts in handheld mode. On the ROG Ally, it's just 25 watts. I don't know if there's really any variety there. But there you have it. Slightly better performance on the Legion Go S, even at a higher resolution with a bigger display, likely due to SteamOS. I don't know for sure. Maybe it doesn't even matter to you. But I guess if you're planning on just using SteamOS, you should be happy to know that performance is better in Ghost of Tsushima using the Legion Go S. Here's the Dead Space Remake running on both handhelds. Identical settings, FSR2 in performance mode with the graphics preset set to medium, 1080p versus 1200p. And what you're going to find, and I was surprised to see this myself, is the ROG Ally X outperforms the Legion Go by almost double here. And believe me, I went through the settings to make sure maybe something was off on one of these devices. But no, this is correct. That's the performance we're getting. So So right here we're at about 100 frames, just dropped to 44, 90. Okay, dropped to 40 again. The last time I played through this just a few minutes ago, we were closer to 100, even during the combat section. So let's go now to Legion Go S. We're at 50, 55. It's definitely more stable here. $47, but more stable. And maybe we can attribute that to additional RAM. But there we go. There's another bad guy. Oh, too late to blow that up. Okay, just dropped to 40. So about 55 on average, I'd say. Whereas the Ally X is higher. It's closer to the upper 80s as an average. Still, like the overall screen size on Legion Go gives it a huge advantage, and it looks great. But I would definitely lean towards getting a matte screen protector because the reflections are just too much. Definitely got to give props to ROG for giving the Ally X a nice anti-glare coating. It's not great, I guess, but it's pretty good, definitely compared to Legion Go. Here's a less demanding game. I have both consoles set to their native resolution, and the performance modes are in balance, so about 15 to 17 watts. Again, both handhelds have the same setting. And this is one of the most fun games. I love it. It's called Blast Brigade. It's not as demanding, so we should be able to get 120 frames per second even in balanced mode. And this is an opportunity to appreciate the screen size difference. So on the ROG Ally X, as you can see, it's quite a bit smaller than on the Legion Go. The colors are great. I have not calibrated the colors. This is just out of the box on the Legion Go S, whereas with the ROG Ally, I've had it for so long, a year, that I've been able to calibrate it and all that kind of stuff. So I think it looks a little more vibrant, better contrast on the ROG Ally. That's probably not translating well here, but is what it is. So the delta, though, not just the screen, the other delta is going to be the battery life. It's a larger battery in the ROG Ally X. So at 15 watts, 17 watts, when you're draining from 80 versus draining from 55 in the Legion Go, the battery's just going to last longer. I mean, that's true for all performance settings. But if you're playing a game like this that is not as demanding, you can play it in low power mode or in balance mode, it's worth mentioning that you're just going to get better battery life out of the ROG Ally X. It's just the way that it is. But the game runs great on both handhelds. I see it changing a bit, 110 to 120 frames per second on the Ally, whereas here it's locked at 120. So sort of like what we saw with Dead Space, more consistency out of the Legion Go S. Having a bigger screen makes a giant difference. Let's go into here. Yeah, it looks great on this as well. Probably a good time to mention that I do, and maybe you saw it in the Dead Space portion, but I really prefer the controls on the ROG Ally X. Just the triggers feel better. They have more weight, a little more substance to them, whereas the triggers on the Legion Go S, they're a little looser. Hey, so the next step is for me to get a matte screen protector to reduce that glare, and then just mainline this for the next 2 weeks, see how I like it, and I'll do another video at that point. I can see myself buying one of these. If I were to own one handheld up to this point, and this point being a point where we don't have Z2 Extremes yet, this would be the one. Even with the smaller battery and the triggers not quite the way I'd like them, I like the bigger size. I really do. And the screen, other than the glare, is actually, it's very pretty. It's a very good screen. So yeah, let me put it through its paces and I'll do a follow-up video. If you have specific requests, please let me know. I don't really do benchmarks. I'll definitely fire up some games and hit certain settings if that's what you guys would like. But there are other channels that go super deep into the tech and they do a great job. So yeah, that's where I'm at. If you have those comments, put them in the chat thingy, and otherwise we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.